Now, a coastal town in Cornwall where rising sea levels threaten to wipe out homes, beaches and businesses in a few decades has been awarded £2 million to mitigate the impacts of climate change. The whole Cornish coast is judged by the Environment Agency to be highly sensitive to sea level rise, but Bude is considered to be the most sensitive of all. We can talk to Robert Ulig, founder and programme director of the Bude Climate Partnership. Good morning to you, Robert. Is there evidence, is this already underway? Is there evidence of this sensitivity and this vulnerability?
Yes, we know that that we're particularly vulnerable. We're vulnerable for a few reasons. One is just the physical nature of the coastline here. The sea actually comes into the town with every tide. There's a tidal river. When we have a particularly high tide or a spring tide or a storm surge, occasionally it laps over the walls. And the effect of sea level rise, which is baked in, I mean, even if all emissions stopped tomorrow, we would still see a foot or more of sea level rise over the next decades to a century. The effect of that is that the kind of events, storm events and disasters, floodings and so on, that now happen about once every 100 to 200 years will become annual events. Okay. And so we need to prepare for that. And our other vulnerability is that we're actually very isolated. We're right at the top northern corner of Cornwall. We're a long, long way from any public services, and so we are particularly vulnerable to the impacts of climate change, and we're seeing them all the time.
Okay, £2 million. What are you actually going to spend that on, and over what time frame?
Well, the first thing to say is that we're incredibly grateful for the money. It came from the lottery, and ultimately from lottery players. So we're going to spend it on 6 different projects, the biggest one of which is a sustainable tourism project, where we'll bring together businesses and the community and visitors to build resilience, so that we know that if there are impacts of climate change, which are inevitably coming in the next 5-10 years' time, that we are prepared for them and that we have plans.
What do you mean by bringing together businesses to do what about sustainability? All use, get rid of plastic forks or build a wall around the city?
No, I mean it needs a little bit more than a little bit more. Recycling's not going to cut the mustard, is it?
So I don't quite understand. What are you going to do with this group of businesses?
Right. Well, okay. So what we will do, there are already businesses that are doing amazing things in this area, but most businesses look at climate change now and they're very concerned about it, but they don't know where to begin. So it's about getting these businesses collaborating. We'll be looking at all sorts of things, that we could possibly do here. We don't have
such as what I'm just trying to say. This is meant to mitigate the impacts of climate change. What's going to come out of this meeting of businesses that will do that? Can be a bit more specific.
That we will build the resilience. I mean, we can't. If you want physical. So there's various different things. One of the things that this community needs to think about is what the effect of sea level rise is going to be. That if nothing is done, then we will have flooding and community assets will be destroyed.
But so isn't that precisely the point? This $2 million is to try and mitigate the impact of it. Having the Bude Chambers of Commerce to think more about sustainability is not going to hold back the waters.
It's not going to hold back the waters. That's why we have to adapt. I mean, we can't beat nature. We need to think of ways in which we can be more resilient. So that when the impacts come, we can deal with them.
Okay. All right, Robert, we'll have to leave it there. Robert Ulig, founder and programme director of the Bude Climate Partnership.